Hello, I'm Roger Bisbee from the Skill Builder channel, and about a year ago we did a video on tool theft, and I said that I was going to pursue the subject of tool theft throughout 2022. So this video is really a catch up on that and to see what we've achieved and what we haven't achieved. I'm with Ian Elliott, and Ian is ex-policeman. Yeah?
I'm indeed, yeah.
And he is the Group Security Editor of Clancy, and you're also the Chairman of
the Combined Industry Theft Solutions Forum, which is a Home Office forum that deals with both the construction and the agriculture industries, and we look at the issues that affect those industries. It's membership of people like government, police, the major construction companies, the manufacturers, insurers, so we all sit together.
So they're all in it.
Yeah, we're all in it.
So you have the ear of all the leading movers and shakers, if you like. Yeah?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, it's a good group to be part of.
So one of the comments that we got on the video when I said I was going to try and pursue this and see if we could bring about some change is people said, you're wasting your time. You know, fair play to you, but you're wasting your time. You'll never get the police to do anything. You'll never get all these other people to do anything. They're not interested. And some people thought it's all a conspiracy and they're actually helping the thieves. So anyway, talking to Ian, I met Ian through the video, and I've met a good many other people as well. I've had a few meetings, and I've got to say we haven't got anywhere with the Home Office, and mainly because we've had 3 different Prime Ministers. How many Home Secretaries, I don't know, but it's been a difficult time, hasn't it? What with Ukraine and COVID, off the back end of COVID.
I think it's a perfect storm for the Home Office at the moment,
yeah.
And I say they are definitely still engaged. They still want to be part and parcel of it, but it's been a hardest year to try and get domestic stuff through when we're dealing with the crisis that we are.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, what I'd like to say is that I've been impressed. I'm not just saying this, you know. I've been impressed by the engagement that you know that you've introduced me to people, and I thought, wow, these people are working sort of 7 days a week or whatever, trying to bring some change here. And one of the big frustrations for them is that they can recover a load of tools, and they've got no way of identifying them. Nobody has marked the tools up, and that was one of the things we talked about very early on, was how we get people to mark tools up. But you've done one better than that, haven't you? You've got the manufacturers involved now.
So as part of CITS, we're looking at 4 strands really, what we're trying to achieve. Number one, we need to get the manufacturers to start recording serial numbers in almost like an orderly fashion. And why I say that, in the fact that you can have a Bosch drill, a Makita drill, a DeWalt drill, all with a serial number 1, 2, 3, 4. So the problem for police is how do they determine what, or even that same number over different models but the same manufacturer. So that it becomes an issue. So what CITS have been doing are trying to encourage the manufacturers. So either we create an ISO standard or a BSI standard that creates a unique serial number. So you can specifically say whatever WFO 67Y is a Makita drill. It's made in this factory, and this was its model number, and more importantly, who it was sold to.
That's the point. Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is encourage the manufacturers at the point of sale to register, and that will benefit for them for warranty purposes. It will benefit them for anti-counterfeit purposes. If people try, you can have a look more of a ownership of that piece of equipment. So that's one of our strands we're trying to do. The second strand we're trying to do is van thefts really easy. The history of that is...
When you say van thefts are really easy, the theft
from vans. Yeah, okay, sorry. So to make it... to understand what Thatcham and the effect on vehicle manufacturers, which has a knock-on effect with the small businesses who drive vans and the plumbers, builders, etc. Each vehicle in the UK has to pass something called a new vehicle security assessment, which is underwritten, or it's written by the motor insurers, and what they dictate to the manufacturer of those vans is it's got to have certain security, it's got to have certain immobilisation, and how that works is the fact that your group rating of the vehicle, i.e. how much it costs you to insure, comes as a direct result of what those risks are on that test. Now, the problem being is they are motor insurers who effectively look at motor risk and so accident damage, theft, etc., etc., etc. So of that damage, what they do is they are purely interested in those risks. It is a totally different insurer that will cover the load.
Yeah. Okay.
And those insurers weren't at that party. So effectively there's been no input on vehicle security for covering the rear load area, which is where all we cook all our tools. So what CITS did is wrote to Thatcham and said, can we review the new vehicle security assessment that now starts to consider the rear vehicle? So I'm really pleased to say that Thatcham have written back and have agreed it. What they've said is from 2024 platform vehicles, all vans coming into the UK or manufactured here have to have a secure load area, so the doors are going to be more secure, and they have to have alarms. Awesome. So that the input of that is going to be significant. So now there's some manufacturers that are going to be ahead of the jump. They're going to want to be there because they need
sell more vans.
Sell more vans, but more importantly, look after their client.
Yeah. I mean, we've had lots of people commenting saying, look, if somebody produced a van that was more like a security van, I would buy it because I'm so fed up with this. You know, I've been robbed 3 times. If I had to spend another 5,000 quid on a van that was secure, they would do it. So there's something to be said there.
I totally agree. The problem is people do need to dictate that. There's lots of things that have to come into it. Weight.
The
payloads of vans now are so small. Transients is a ton. So by the time you took the 2 guys in it and their tools, you're quite often running it. So anything that you can do to reduce it. So that's one of the reasons why some of the manufacturers haven't done it in the past, and there's been no call for it.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at the way that people break into vans, and we've got loads and loads of evidence of that. We've got, everybody sticks a photograph up the following morning after they've been robbed, and you see what they're doing. Sometimes as crudely as with a tin opener, a manual tin opener. They're opening a baked bean can, and if you can put different materials in there, that is one thing. You know, that doesn't add to the weight, but it's a bit like chainsaw trousers. You know, you put a chainsaw through it, it clogs the chainsaw, stops the saw. So a combination. I've always thought if you ply line with a decent ply liner, not just the very thin stuff, but something like 12mm ply, they've got to cut through the metal, then they've got to cut through the ply, and then
I think what you'll see is the manufacturers are protecting the door locking mechanisms a lot more. The cable runs, that's how they're getting in. They drill a hole in the door skin. It will come, but I would suggest the majority of those vehicles probably don't have alarms on them. So they're making as little noise as they can, getting into it with a tin opener, and then they've opened the doors, and then they've emptied your tools.
And they're very, very fast, these guys, aren't they?
They're
because they know exactly where that
this is their day job.
Or night job, as it were.
Well, we're seeing lots of during the day, in fairness. So one of the lads will be actually at the van working down the hole. Certainly, our company's got 1,500, 2,000 vans, and the number of theft issues I see on a daily basis is concerning, and a lot of those are now happening during the day while the lads are physically 50 feet from the van, down the hole. Yeah, so it is an issue.
Brazen beyond belief, these guys, aren't they?
Indeed.
So that's vehicle security.
Yep.
Not dealt with, but great progress on it. It's things people have been asking for. Why aren't the van manufacturers doing more? Well, there's the answer to that one. So, tool marking, we've dealt with that to a certain extent, but it still depends upon the owners doing their bit.
I think the biggest. I'll show you some photographs of a job. So. I suppose I'm gamekeeper turned poacher, or vice versa, really, in the fact that I was in the police. I spent 30 years investigating this type of thing. I'm now on the flip side, where I'm out the police and a member of the public going, why have my van been broken into again? The real issue is people need to mark their tools, 100%. And it's no good just putting Mark or Dave or whatever, because who is Mark or Dave? There's a job literally currently at the moment in West London where they've recovered 400 drills and power tools. None of them have got markings other than the job that we had up until quite recently. So my firm, we track most of our bits and pieces. So we had a breaker that we track. That was tracked to the White Hart Lane tool sales.
That's in London for those outside of London.
Unfortunately, it's a renowned site. The tracking company went there and found our breaker basically, but it was with a whole load of other tools. So I'm communicating with the police officer and saying, look, I can help you because I'm ex-police. I know what he's trying to achieve, and the flip side of what we need to do to try and help recover people's tools. So he seized the van, arrested the man, and the site was really sad, really. The number one starts is, what do the police do with the van? So the very first nature, so they've arrested the person, they've now got a van to store. How do they store that securely? So they don't have to use outside contractors. They've got a van full
so
of...
it doesn't get broken into.
So partly, but it's just they have to secure all that evidence. So then they have warehouses, and I can take you to warehouses that are full of boxes and boxes of property that was arrested with a person that the police now have to identify. Trust me.
Or give back to the thief.
That is the worst possible thing, and as for a policeman, it was the most painful thing. I knew that this contents of stuff was stolen. They would sue me to get that stuff back, and they will. And so if I can't identify it, or if I couldn't at that time, we had to physically give it back to the people who'd stolen it. And trust me, that leaves, because they're laughing at you. Now, the issue that we found with this job was, so of that one tracker recover, we identified property from 11 different burglaries. They were all within the last month or so.
When you say you identified was that through tool markings on some of the tools, or what? Or serial numbers?
A little bit of both. So some of it was from the electric marking, the security safety marking that we managed to track back. Some of it was from people actually marking their tools. The best one was where people put his telephone number. It's easy. So writing Dave or Jim or whatever on your tools, which may work within your own firm, doesn't work if you've lost that and you've got them police trying to identify who is Dave or Jim. And I say there's a job currently where we've got 400 plus drills and power tools that there are no markings on.
Can I just ask, because again, one of the comments we're getting is people saying, well, it might have a serial number, it might have a badge on it, but they will remove that serial number or that badge. Now you've got a development there as well with the Home Office.
So what we're looking at is what we're trying to do is get legislation through Parliament at the moment, and that's had its first reading about taking numbers off, and you have to display serial numbers at the point of sale, etc., etc. So which may help. I have to reiterate, people have to mark their tools. I think there's too much of an attitude of people going, it won't happen to me, it doesn't matter. Now, I had a chap who worked for us, still works for us. He had his van stolen. He was a subcontractor, a specialist plumber. That was his life in that van. Now, he was at the van in South London, he was at the back doors, he was working in it. He foolishly, in his own eyes, had left the keys in the ignition because he's just popped round the back to do a couple of bits and pieces. Someone drives past, sees the keys in the ignition, sees him at the back, jumps in, drives off.
And he just did that.
It's gone. And so he's standing there absolutely watching his van disappear. Now, he was absolutely distraught. He was suicidal for a week because his entire livelihood. So my comments to anybody watching this is, if the tools in your van are your livelihood and you require them, then you've got to look after them and you've got to mark them. And I know it takes time, and I know can't be bothered, but on that, the difference is getting your stuff back or not. He was absolutely distraught.
And ruining the market for it. I mean, that's the other thing we've got to do, is if these tools are marked and they're marked in such a way that people are going to get arrested if they're selling them, that's a factor in it. But the other thing I was alluding to there was that we were saying about the serial numbers, and people say, well, that's easy, they just remove the serial numbers. Now, you were saying to me that you're going to try and make it an offence to sell a tool with a serial number removed.
We're trying.
I know that's a long way down the line, but that's another
I think that's our dream, in the fact that we would like to see every advert. Again, I've got to be saying to people, I know times are hard, money's tight, we all need to sort of make ends meet, and so there is a drive sometimes to buy second-hand tools. My question to you would be, how often would you sell one of your tools second-hand?
Never.
And I don't think you do. I think the tradesmen, because it's their part of their equipment, they do. You may have some of the big companies go at the end of a project and may get rid of some stuff, but in the main, those tools are kept forever till they break or burn out. Whilst I'm saying don't not buy second-hand tools, just raise that question in your head. You've got to look at everything about it. Is it safe to start with? Why is it being sold? Why did the first person get rid of it? Is it stolen? There's so many questions. Warranty. It's just, are you ever going to meet this man again? If it's rubbish, if it's just a piece of plastic. And I would drive people to buy tools, buy them new, mark them at the point of sale that you've got it, equip it, mark it up, put your indelible pen, put your name, your telephone number, your postcode, and don't just do it on the tool, do it on the box. So where we found a lot of the things where the boxes, we were then taking the inside covers off, and we'd actually see people had actually been sensible enough to put that inside the box, so the thieves just go, yeah, no, it's fine, put it on the market. And when we came and seized it, we can actually start looking. So the more places you can look, trust me, as a policeman, you are going to take that thing and look all over it because you want to give it back. You do not want that person to get away with it, and that is you know, people will kick the old bill police for not doing enough. Yeah. There's a load of passionate guys trying to do the right thing, but how do you do it? Yeah. And especially when you've just got a whole property where people can't be asked to mark their own stuff.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think you've hit it there. It's you know, if you're a policeman and you've gone through all that trouble and you've got the guy and you're trying to lay a charge on him, and you're frustrated because you think the guy who owned these tools, thousands of pounds worth of tools, that's his livelihood, like you say, couldn't even be bothered to spend an hour with an indelible pen just marking the life out of the thing everywhere you like, postcode, whatever, you know. I mean, that I think that would be the biggest message to people. Mark your tools, mark your tools.
Our company, we paint everything, and so we paint it in our corporate colours, and that we do have things stolen, but not much in relation to other companies, because it's everybody goes, oh no, that's corporate mark. That's how do I get it? Everybody knows what it is.
I mean, removing the paint off a tool is long.
It takes a long time.
You wouldn't bother. You're dead right. So if you can do anything that you can do to spoil the look of it, as far as somebody's looking, lovely shiny tool.
It's mark your tools. Put your some sort of marking. There's loads of companies out there that do aftermarket marking systems. Do it.
So we've got vehicle security. We've got tool marking.
Yep.
We've got if they catch the thief and they manage to get a successful charge on him, conviction.
Yep.
The other thing that people are saying, I know this isn't, you can't do anything about this, but sentencing. They're saying they get a rap on the knuckles, suspended sentence, they're off again doing it the next week.
But we can. So, as a group, with your audience, and what we actually do is demand, and so we can ask the CPS to demand more. So it's raising the profile. At the moment, the trouble is the theft of tools. The Home Office asks a really basic question: what is a tool? And that's a really good. Well, is that a garden fork that's out of someone's shed, or is that a £1,000 drill? Is it so? And what are we going to do? What are we trying to achieve? Now, how many tools are being stolen? Now, because it will either be shown as a burglary, or it'll be shown as a theft from motor vehicle, or it'll be theft from garden shed. It doesn't actually say what that actually just shows. Some tools are stolen. Yeah. And what we need to try and get to recognise is that this is someone's livelihood. And the theft and the impact of those theft of tools is massive, and that's why I literally got to say to your watchers, listeners, readers, whatever, is, if this is your livelihood and you need those tools, you have to look after them, you have to mark them, you have to have the eyes on the back of your head, because if you're on a site, there'll be somewhere who will have it away.
That's another thing. I mean, just, people stealing tools when you turn your back on a site. I've had that, and there are loads and loads of things. Even working in a client's house, going down to get some tools from your van, go back up. Where's my drill? The guys go, I haven't seen your drill, mate. He may not be employing you. You may be employed by the landlord or whatever. He's got no skin in the game. He's going to nick your tool. Drug money. We know all the. I don't want to stereotype people, but it happens. I've had it myself. So. Yeah, so I think we're making progress. I mean, these things are really hard, aren't they? But with what you've told me so far is encouraging, and what we're saying is it's now time for the owners of the tools to step up and do it.
I think it's a bit of everything. I think the stars are aligning in relation to it. People are starting. The letter that you wrote to the Home Office had a massive impact. Yeah, good. Because they can immediately go, how do we answer that? When they're challenged, they need to come up with a reasonable answer. And the number of letters that were going in, so we've had police and crime commissioners doing exactly the same. We've had police officers doing the same, and there is a real groundswell of let's do something about this. We need to make it more priority. We need the manufacturers to understand, i.e. the tool manufacturers to understand that the loss of tool. Some would cynically say, for one stolen, there's another one sold. And there's definitely that in the market. You know, when you speak to a manufacturer, they go, well, why do I want to do that? It's going to cost me money. Because if one's stolen, we know we'd have to order another one to replace it. So we've got to get over that mindset, and we've got to get that. Now that used to happen in the plant machinery world, and I think now the corporate responsibility of those firms now have started to stand up and go, right, actually, no, we need to make a stand on it. We need to protect our clients, not just think of our bottom line profits of short-term value.
I mean, there's a great parallel there, because I know that, you know, a huge part of your job is about stopping plant theft, isn't it? And I think you've been more successful on that than a lot of people would appreciate.
So my role originally in the police was sitting, and so I would look at what the thieves would do. So I would look at how they would steal something, and then it would be my role. I was at Scotland Yard for a number of years, where I would then sit down and then go to the manufacturers, go to the industry and challenge them back and say, right, we need to do something about that. So with plant, we've created what's called the CSER scheme, the Construction Equipment Security Registration Scheme, which is you'll see the triangles on most of the mini diggers, and that allows a 24-hour contact details to be recorded, so police can see a machine on the back of a lorry heading to Dover or wherever, stop the lorry, and without having to climb over it, try and climb over it, try and identify any of the numbers, he can do a visual check on it and go, right, that is XYZ, I'll ring the owner. And quite often they were ringing the owner unaware of the theft. You know, it was stolen.
He's still in bed.
He's still in bed, yes.
And you're waking the guy up to tell him his digger's been stolen.
So the recovery rate of that has gone up exponentially, so that's been a huge success. From the back of that then we were training a lot of police. We've just done one last week where we were training police officers to make them more aware to look at. So tool theft has now become part of that. So we're now going out training officers and say, are you aware that theft of those tools from that person is his livelihood, and and this is the impact he's having? So then we designed, where it was so successful, the recovery of those big plant machines, we, the industry, were saying, well, actually, I've not solved it because it's always going to happen, but I'm getting increased recoveries. And that was making things like we were going to the manufacturer and say unique key. We need to have a unique key because one key fit it all. So there's still some manufacturers that you can put a screwdriver in and start it. Whereas if you look at the big companies now, the JCBs and the Kubotas, Takuchis, Hitachis, you've got to have a unique key, specifically like your car key. It won't start it with a screw blade. So the big utility companies that SITS then said, right, well, our biggest loss now are small tools.
Oh, okay.
So my loss as a business.
Crime across.
Yeah.
I think some people would say, what about the politicians? We've let them off. They're supposed to be working for us. And I must admit, I wrote to my local MP, didn't even get a reply. So they're sleeping on the job.
I think it's probably a little bit excusable. We have had 3 prime ministers, we've had 3 policing ministers. On all the engagement, I can say the policing minister was interested in this. The Home Office are interested in it. I think that I think they're just awash with other issues. We've got to keep raising it. We've got absolutely, and I think the time is right. I think the stars have aligned. I think we need, as businesses, we need to be campaigning more. We need to be writing to our MP, our PCC, the Police Crime Commissioner.
Is that who are those people? Because I wrote to them and I got no reply from them either.
Right, again, complained because they're publicly elected. You obviously get the chance to vote for them. I'm in contact with 2 at the moment, literally, who are concerned about the amount of theft that they've seen of theft of tradesmen's tools from their vans, and so I'm communicating with them, and that's it. We've got to join forces, we've got to work together, and we've got to, it's no good, I say, Darren, whinging it and it's everybody else's fault. We've got to actively campaign. We've actually got to do it, and I think the time is right.
Is there anything going through Parliament at the moment that is
there's an MP called Greg Smith who's just put in a first bill. He's looking at legislation. It's the first reading, which means it's very bland, very open, but it's the potential. Now is the time that we can actually, for the second reading, actually put the meat on the bones, if that makes sense. So we can actually say, right, we want it to be an offence of grounding out numbers of tools. We want it to be every tool, every professional tool, I would suggest, as opposed to every garden fork, needs to be have a proper serial number, and it needs to be registered with a point of sale. And I think they are the type of things that we need to change. It's a difficult one for the Home Office because of the issues, but I think they'll be there, and I think with the people like yourself your letter had such an impact that they were coming to me and saying, we've had this, what do we do? So then where are we with it? And they need an easy answer. And so working with a group like CITS, it's handy because we're already that group of, the insurers together with the manufacturers, together with the utility companies, our voices are being heard.
Yeah, we just don't want too many layers of complexity there, do we? You've got to try and keep these things streamlined and simple.
Yes, because the more complexity you get, the more the other side going, that's going to cost us money, therefore we won't want to do that. We've got to get out of the mindset of one stolen and there's another one sold.
So can I just ask you about that Caesar scheme, because you said it's a sticker.
Yep.
What's to stop somebody removing the sticker? If they steal a digger, before they put it on the lorry, get rid of a sticker. Is it easy or hard?
No, it's a very good question, and that's how the system was actually designed is the police sat there and designed it with the industry, and we asked exactly that. Policemen are very cynical, old buggers basically, and they go, oh yeah, whatever, so they're just going to pull the sticker off. With the Caesar scheme, there are a number of security layers, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to layer your scheme. No good just relying on one thing. You can't just rely on my tracker or on my marking scheme. You've got to layer it. So it has a marking scheme, and we then say, well, what happens if they fake that sticker? How do you make sure that's genuine? So the font on the sticker is a certain font. There is a radio frequency ID tag underneath it, so we can actually, similar to your cat or dog chip, and we can actually scan it. But there are other chips hidden on the machine. There's thousands of microdots painted. So if you look at it would be impossible to remove its ID, because it's that thorough. So the police were right. We were challenging. What about that? What if they did that? And in the end, we went, do you know what? That's actually pretty good. Yeah. So with tools, now the biggest issue is always going to be cost. So how can we do that? So I would say mark your tools with indelible pen. But what we've done now is we've taken Caesar down to a level of small tools, so you can put it on your power tools. So our business at the moment, we've got a couple of trials on some of our contracts where we use something called micro Caesar. So what that is effectively a sticker, which is a tamper-proof, tamper-evident sticker. I'll show it to you. Which is one of those there. This was produced by a company called DataTag. DataTag have got the license currently to run the Caesar scheme.
So we've got a couple of barcodes there.
So what the Caesar scheme is it's run by the Construction Equipment the Construction Equipment Association. So they're the manufacturers of the diggers. So they own the scheme, but they licensed a company to provide it for them.
Got it.
So DataTag currently have that. So that identifies, you put that on your steel saw, on your drills or whatever. But it's also got a radio frequency tag on it, so if they scratch that off or remove it. But most importantly, the serial number of the machine or the drill is registered on a database already.
Got it.
So even if they do scratch that off, we can check the serial number and it will come up on that database and it will come up with stolen or whatever. So it allows that. There are lots of other manufacturers and lots of other companies that provide marking schemes, and I would suggest you do something with them. It's just, I suppose my suggestion is, if you saw that piece of tool, how can you identify it on the street? And that's probably my biggest thing. My favourite. You've got to think of the officer in the street who's. Yeah. Am I going to make an arrest or not? I need to identify whether that tool's stolen. How can you do it really quickly? By making a quick phone call to a company or scanning something, doing a barcode check on his phone, that will say whether it's stolen.
That brings us very neatly to the problem of a national tool register, where there's one database that all the police and everybody else can access, find out about the tool. Now, that is fraught with problems as well, isn't it?
It is, because you have to jump through so many hoops to be, even to the compliance of the data. Is it compliant with LPS 1224? There are so many loopholes for that to do. I think what the police are looking at various systems that their police computer can literally search a number of databases. So whilst I would support a national database, I think given the myriad of tools and the difference of types, are we talking about chainsaws for the horticultural world, or are we talking about cut-off saws made by the same manufacturer for the construction industry, or there's so many nuances of it.
And who owns the database?
Yeah.
That's another problem, isn't it? But the other thing is writing down serial numbers and putting them in. That, I mean, if you gave me 8 numbers and asked me to write them down, I'd get 2 of them in, transposed. It's just the way I am. So writing a serial number down absolutely accurately.
I get that, but again, this is another thing that is future-proofing potentially. So that micro-Caesar system, what we've actually done is devised it. So we've actually now started marking up on some of our vans. So we can scan the van and say exactly what tools are in it. And it's all done via the QR codes.
I think we've covered a lot of ground there. There's a lot more. Obviously, we could talk for another hour. I know there's other things in there. There's other things in development. There's going to be a conference you're arranging for next year now.
Yep. So we're doing a big conference in obviously next year. It will be. I'd love you to be there. It's basically showing this is the issue of tool theft. This is the impact it has, and I'd like to actually even bring the lad who had his stuff stolen, so he could highlight to the minister there and to the government home office of the effect it had on him. And although he's employed by a big company, it ruined his life, absolutely, certainly for weeks. And then bringing those manufacturers together. What we'll also try and do is obviously bring the marking companies and the tool companies actually together and go, right, okay, and the manufacturers of the vehicles to say, right, these are the things that we can do to protect it now. People need to make that step and become bothered about it, and bothered enough to go out and mark their tools.
They are bothered. I mean, they're really bothered. But what they're doing is they're blaming everybody else and going, "Oh, it's, somebody else has got to sort. The government's got to sort this out. The vehicle manufacturer's got to sort this out. The police have got to sort this out. The judges, whatever."
Yeah.
There is a role to be played by every one of us.
I reiterate, it is the most painful thing when you've gone through the aggravation of arresting someone who is in your face, confrontational. You've seized a whole load of things that absolutely know in your heart of hearts that they're stolen and that belong to somebody else, and they're laughing at you, and then they literally demanding their stuff back because we can't do it. And the current law is if you can't prove that is stolen, you have to return that property. And then they walk away from you laughing. That's why police are equally beside themselves about people not marking their tools.
Yeah. And I'd also say that we've had many comments about this. It's the fault of the people buying the stolen tools who are also, to blame. It's them, So we've got to stop buying those tools. You've had your tools stolen. Tempting thing, go to White Hart Lane, buy a load of stolen tools to replace them. Even buy your own tools back. That must happen.
And then literally the following week.
Back again. We're feeding it.
We are feeding that.
Okay, brilliant. Nice to see you, Ian. Again.
Thank you very much for showing interest, and keep campaigning.
We'll come to the conference.
Brilliant.
And no doubt we'll have a few updates by then.
No, definitely. I think there's some really good news for you as well. I'm hoping.
Good. Excellent. I love good news.